Gotta take a big sip of water first because if we're gonna be reading for 48 hours, our girl is staying hydrated. Hello book reading friends, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Mel. Hi. So I am trying out this mellow lighting for the intro just because I'm vibing. It's nighttime and I am ready to sit down and read and just be cozy. And honestly, turning on this light kind of ruins the vibe. So as you can see by the title, I am hosting another 48-hour readathon. I do monthly readathons with my Patreons and it is time for the July readathon. I am super excited. I actually feel like reading, and that's not to say that other times I haven't felt like reading, but today I am going to try and make an effort to be #TeamNoSleep. I've got some books I really want to get through. I am excited about the TBR. I have a game plan. I have these books not only physically, but I also have some of these books on audiobook and some of them on ebook, so I feel like I've got the perfect game plan and I am ready to just read. So I've got my TBR right here. We've got some plans. Let me run you through them. The first book I am focusing on for the readathon is We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faizal. This I did start during last month's readathon and I have yet to finish it. However, I am halfway through and I am hoping that during the first 12 hours or so I can get through the last 50%. Tokyo Ueno Station is another one I want to tackle. I also have the ebook for this and I'm super excited to read this. I also think it makes for the perfect readathon read because it is so short, so hopefully it'll be good and entertaining, and since it's literary fiction, also with a touch of magical realism, so we vibe in. Another book I have the audiobook for, especially because always during readathons I find myself doing stuff that doesn't allow me to have time to read, like doing chores or just taking care of stuff outside of the scope of reading. So I think it's gonna be really nice to have an audiobook I can listen to in those times, and that is gonna be Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. And the last book on my TBR is If We Were Villains by Emil Rio. I've been meaning to read this book for quite a while and it is finally time to get to it. Also have the ebook for it. It is also rather short. I've heard that it's really good and gripping, and just based on the vibes, I think it's going to make for the perfect nighttime read during sprints. This right here is my TBR for the next 48 hours and I am beyond excited. Let's get started. Let's talk about one amazing book. What? I just finished We Hunt the Flame. Also, as far as an hour check-in goes, it is 11, oh, there we go, it's 11:35. Started the readathon at 7, so I've been going for a solid 4.5 hours. Finished this. Granted, I was halfway through. I didn't read this entire book in 4.5 hours, though that'd be massively impressive. This was out of this world. I was listening to the Game of Thrones soundtrack as I was reading this and it just enhanced the experience. The beats and the instruments used for that score I feel fit so perfectly the vibe of this, where it's epic but it also has its romantic parts. It is tense a lot of the time, if not all of the time, and all of the characters were a sight to behold. And I think what I love the most about this book really is Saphira as the main character. Now let me give you a synopsis because I know I started reading this in my last readathon vlog, but for those of you who haven't watched this, let me just give you a synopsis. So we essentially have Arawiya, which is the land this entire story takes place in. Arawiya used to be a land full of magic and beauty, and now depending on the area, it is desolate. It is an endless winter. There are a lot of different power dynamics going into this that don't allow people to have or live in the best of conditions. Into present time, magic has been lost. It has been not necessarily banished from the land, but it has been lost, and nobody really knows how to bring it back to what it once used to be. And so on one hand, we have Saphira, who is considered the hunter. She disguises herself as a man to not succumb herself to the judgment that comes with the patriarchal structure of this world, and she embarks on a journey to find the lost Jawarat, which is a book that is set to contain the way to bring magic back into the land. And on the other side of things, we've got Nasir, who is the Sultan's son, so by right, he is the prince. He was trained since a very young age to become the best assassin in the entire land, and he has been tasked with two things: to find the lost Jawarat and to also kill the hunter. And so that is, in the little scheme of things, because there's so many things that happen, that is sort of the catalyst for the story and the premise as a whole. However, the twists and turns in this book had me absolutely bamboozled. While there were things that I was like, okay, I feel like this could be a thing, and they ended up being a thing, most of the twists I really didn't see coming in the slightest, which is honestly the best sort of book to have in terms of structure and bamboozling and fuckery and everything in between. And not only that, but also the worlds that this takes place in. It feels so magical despite magic not really being quote unquote present at the start of the story, and it gets only more magical as you keep going, and things start unraveling in a way that things that happen early on in the story make more sense due to these revelations. So I love how everything in this book really does come full circle. I also love how we expand on the cast of characters as the story moves forward. So we not only get Saphira and Nasir, we get people like Altair, we get people like Benjamin and Kifa, and a bunch of other characters that really just enrich the story and make it a extremely exciting action-packed time. And again, the reason why I feel I love this so much, beyond the fact that the book is exciting and beyond the fact that the slow burn romance was out of this world and that the tension between Saphira and Nasir was absolutely top tier, I really love this book because of Saphira. I love how she is constantly breaking these societal norms and standards for women, and how she is constantly fighting after being incredibly fearful of what could happen to her, how she is now really fighting this ideal of the patriarchy, and how it keeps pushing once more the idea that women are less than women are less capable, that women cannot do certain things because that is the way that things quote unquote work. And I love how she is constantly defying that and constantly proving how worthy and capable she is, and she is so freaking fearless, and she loves so deeply. Like, her character is just everything and more. I absolutely fell in love with her. And Nasir too. Nasir ends up being this character that fully embodies the result of a patriarchy. Somebody who by all ideas and standards is very stoic. Somebody who doesn't like showing emotion because he believes that it is weakness. Somebody who doesn't want to cry in front of people because, again, it is considered a weakness, and that is how he was raised by his father. And so when you get to know Nasir, he's not really any of those things, but that is the front that he has to put up in order to comply with a set of standards that are sort of expected from him, not only as a man, but also as the prince. And I love how Hafsa Faisal wrote that. Essentially, we spend the majority of the time of them knowing, quote unquote, knowing each other, really having this immense amount of tension, right? They want to kill each other. They are at each other's throats. They are literally the embodiment of knife to the throat plenty of times, but also if you touch her or if you touch him, I will kill you, which is a very irrational feeling both of them end up having, and it is absolutely incredible. But I love how slow burn it was and how seasoned it was towards the end where they finally kiss, because you can tell that it's been building up, you know? It's the little glances and the touches and the gestures that really really have been speaking volumes throughout the entirety of the book. So when they finally kiss, it's like this really rewarding feeling of finally, after an entire book, we got there. And so I loved their dynamic. It was so very great. And I just love how both of them have this core lesson to learn as the book moves forward. And it is that displaying emotion is not weak, and that loving is not a sign of weakness. It is something that makes you strong, and it is something not worth living without. And I loved how they both got there in the end. So I loved this. The writing was also stunning. I'm just in love with Hafsa Faisal's writing. And I also love how the world building itself, with all of these explanations and the backstory to the world and how the magic came to not be anymore. I like how everything is very clearly established in the story, how everything is thoroughly explained, but how nothing is confusing. And I love that. Everything seems to be very clear in this world. Everything is very cut and dry, but not really, because it's written beautifully. But the history and the rules of magic are all very cut and dry, very clear. This is what you get, and there will be no confusion. Thank you so much. I also think it's worth noting that despite this book being YA, it really doesn't read like a YA book. I think there's very few things about this book that read like the typical YA structure, YA trope. I think in terms of pacing, it felt very adult fantasy, especially also for the romance, which we already know that romance in a YA story tends to take the forefront of the story. And although it was very prominent towards the last 100 pages, not necessarily because the characters are together, because they're not, but in the way that, you know, you can see them going in this back and forth motion of I want you, but I don't want you, I want you, but I don't. And so because of that really slow burn nature, it felt more adult as well, because the author really gave it time to come to be when the time was right, and not necessarily to do any sort of fan service towards the age group or the, I guess, stereotypical tropes that you'd see. Even in terms of the world, it felt more aligned with adult to me than YA. And although characters' ages are not really indicative of the age group that the book belongs in, I also think the ages of the characters make more sense in an adult setting, especially because Nasir is in his early 20s. However, my next read, Tokyo Ueno Station, because I have the ebook, and honestly I think switching from physical to ebook is going to give me a great break. So if I want to read a little bit in bed before actually going to sleep, I can do so. I will update you guys when I have an update to give. Good morning! So it is 9:08 a.m. Good morning, and it is time to get the day started. I decided to start out by doing chores just to get those out of the way. So I have done the dishes, I have swept the house, I have organized my bed, I have organized my bathroom, I've organized everything, and here we are. Hi. So before I actually sit down to read, I want to unbox a little something with you guys, just to also unbox it, because if not, it's going to stay in my laundry room. And that is the June Fairy Loot. So let us unbox this together, shall we? Dun, 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 dun. And the first thing I see right here is actually a book bag inspired on the Atlas 6. And it's just like obvious that it's the Atlas 6 because this is the self-published cover, which is so very unexpected for like a book sleeve. I would have never guessed that they would have used this cover for the book sleeve. We got another trinket dish, and this is inspired by the Puapi War. So it is a Rin trinket dish. It is designed by ARZ28, and I have got all of my trinket dishes on display in my apartment. This is really pretty. I absolutely love the trinket dishes by Fairy Loot. I think they're really pretty. They're high quality. I think they just nailed it with the black and grays and the rose gold. I just think it's a really pretty moment. So got another trinket dish, a Sting paper tabs. Sting. I'm trying to think about what in the world is named Sting in a fantasy setting. So these are the tabs, and listen, I don't actually use these, but they're pretty to collect. From Lord of the Rings. I haven't read Lord of the Rings, so it makes sense. There's just 2 more items, and one of them is the extra book. So this is Twin Crowns by Catherine Doyle and Catherine Weber, and this is a really stunning extra copy. We've even got stenciled edges. I don't think we've ever, well,
not in my time here, but have we ever gotten stenciled edges in an extra book from Fairyloot? This is really, really stunning. And the back of this says, 2 sisters, 1 crown. Should I do a dramatic reading of the synopsis? Princess Rose Valhart is heir to the throne of Iana. Trained from birth to fear the witches that killed her parents, she will do anything to defend her kingdom. Stolen from the palace at birth, Ren Greenrock is the secret sister no one knows about. She plots to usurp the princess in order to protect the witches of Artha who raised her. In the battle for the crown of Iana, where will your allegiances lie? That was so dramatic. Somebody needs to stop me from thinking I'm an audiobook narrator. Like, who's going to tell me? Okay, so one of our last few items, we've got this art print right here. I'm not quite sure. Adelina. And the art is by Damien.in.the.den. And oh, it is inspired by The Young Elites by Mary Lou. I never read The Young Elites. Do I still own it? Pretty sure I on-hauled that too. Then from the tarot cards, we do have From Blood and Ash. And these are Major Arcana. We've got the Lovers and the Chariot. We've got Poppy and Hawk on one card, and then we've got Kieran on the other. So we've got From Blood and Ash characters. And now for the book, I see yellow. I love this a lot. I love when they do different color schemes. Ooh, we've got a really stunning art print, which has the letter from the author at the back. This illustration is really pretty. We've also got the bookmark that accompanies the theme for the month, which is Chosen Ones. And we have the book. What is this called? This Vicious Grace by Emily Thide. 3 weddings, 3 funerals, 1 more chance to save them all. Well, hello. And, ooh, wait, this is stenciled edges too. That is nice. We also have some end papers here with, I will assume, the main character. And, oh, I love when they do this. I love when they do mirroring images with like the love interests, and one's at the front and one is at the back. I love that. Fairyloot knows how to do it. It's also got some foiling on the hardcover. Alessa's gift from the gods. Exactly. Is supposed to magnify a partner's magic. I love that. Not kill every, oh god, it's got killing odds, yes! Now with only weeks left until a swarm of demons devours everything on her island home, Alessa is running out of time to find a partner and stop the invasion. When a powerful priest convinces the faithful that killing Alessa is the island's only hope, even her own soldiers try to assassinate her. Ooh. Desperate to survive, Alessa hires Dante! Is this gonna be like fantasy bodyguard trope? I'm here for it. A cynical outcast marked as a killer to become her personal bodyguard? Is he gonna be immune to her touch? I love this. But as rebellion explodes outside the gates, Dante's dark secrets may be the biggest betrayal. Dante holds the key to Alessa's survival and her heart. Is he the one person who can help her master her gift, or will he destroy her once and for all? Listen, I'm not saying I'm gonna read this next week, but I'm reading this next week. Anyways, yes, thank you for coming to this Fairyloot unboxing with me. Now we're gonna get on to the rest of the vlog, and I do need to sit down and finish editing tomorrow's video, which is a weekly vlog, because I have just a little bit more to edit. I literally have the outro, and then I have some B-roll. That's what I need to do. And then after that, it's exporting time. So we're gonna get that done this fine morning so that we can spend the rest of the day reading. You guys, I literally have stuff cooking in the air fryer right now, so I hope you can't hear it because I'm cooking breakfast. However, Tokyo Ueno Station, the very start, listen to this. There's that sound again, that sound. I hear it, but I don't know if it's in my ears or in my mind. I don't know if it's inside me or outside. I don't know when it was or who it was either. Is that important? Was it? Who was it? I used to think life was like a book. You turn the first page and then there's the next. And as you go on turning page after page, eventually you reach the last one. But life is nothing like a story in a book. There may be words and the pages may be numbered, but there is no plot. There may be an ending, but there is no end. Left behind, like a sculpted tree on the vacant land where a rotted house has been torn down. Like the water in a vase after wilted flowers have been removed. Left behind. But then what of me remains here? A sense of tiredness. I was always tired. There was never a time I was not tired. Not when life had its claws in me and not when I escaped from it. I did not live with intent. I only lived. But that's all over now. What? The writing! Oh my god. Okay, let me go pay attention to me making my breakfast, but oh my god.
Y'all, we finished Vivo and it was so good. It was so wholesome, but like so sad. It was just so good. I had the best time watching that movie, and the music, Gloria Estefan, Lin-Manuel Miranda. I love that the guy who voices Andres is also a Cuban singer and a musician. It's just, it's so good. So now I am exporting tomorrow's video and it's almost done. It literally has 10 minutes left, so I'll be able to put that up for my patrons for early access and to schedule for tomorrow. And now that the movie is done, oh, I also ordered Starbucks, so that should also be on its way soon because I haven't had Starbies in a hot minute and I am due for a nice little drink. We're also having a skincare party during sprints today, so I think coffee plus skincare is a really good combo. I mean, kind of dehydrating the skin whilst hydrating it at the same time, but it's fine. I'll drink some water afterwards. And while Starbucks gets here, I will be continuing Tokyo Ueno Station so I can get some reading done. So I did a skincare moment, which is why I've got my hair up, and it was a great time. It just felt very rejuvenating and amazing. So I needed the skincare, needed the face mask, needed everything. It was a great self-care moment, and I finished Tokyo Ueno Station. Let me try and put this book into words in the best way I can. I also said I was gonna update you at the 50% mark, and then I didn't. I disappeared and I finished the book. We follow Kazu, who is a recently deceased homeless man. His life has been filled with coincidences tied to the imperial family, from him being born the same day as the emperor and his son being born in the same day as the emperor's son, and really stumbling upon the imperial family time and time again. His life seems to be a combination of coincidences and regrets and a lot of self-reflection and a lot of yearning potentially for doing things in a different light than the way he carried them out when he was still alive. I think the book at its core really is a character study, and it's interesting in the way that it's executed. It doesn't really have chapters. It's very almost erratic in the way that it's written. A lot of the time, the sequence of events is not very linear. Sometimes it's not very orderly. It seems very chaotic, and the story seems to tell all of these events in the same way that Kazu as a character is thinking about them. So nothing really feels like it fits a linear timeline once more, and nothing really feels very ordered, which I think fits this narrative so well. And I've got my pros and cons for that. I feel like, again, the chapters would have given it more order, but at the same time, this feels very stream of consciousness, very dream-like, because the main character experiences things that way. And so while I thought this book would explore his life at the train station that he quote-unquote haunts, it really isn't about that. He does comment on the daily happenings in the train station as well as the park adjacent to it, but he doesn't really haunt it per se. He is very observant and he comments on what is happening on a daily basis. But the bulk of the story is not really centered on that. It's much rather centered around his life, the way that he grew up, when he got married, when he had kids, his life after he had kids, and him reminiscing about all of these things, and a lot of the time wishing that he had done things differently, particularly with his kids. I feel like he wasn't really present in their life. So whenever we get these moments of introspection that includes his kids, and again, all of the coincidences and parallels between his life and the imperial family, we really see Kazu almost regretting a lot of his decisions, where he yearns to have done things differently with his kids, to be more present, to be more vocal, to tell them more constantly that he loved them, and not just being there when he quote-unquote needed to be. And so it's a very sad and tragic story, because we really don't follow a character who had a perfect life. This was a man who had to live through a lot, even historically. And there are sprinklings in here of Japan's history, which is also really, really great. And obviously stories and history surrounding the station as well. And so for a man who lived that long in the period of time where he did 30s, 40s, 50s, his life really is riddled with so many questions as to what would have happened if things would have panned out differently. And his life story really is rough. Like, this is a sad book. I didn't cry, but I think the way that he looked at life and all of his metaphors and the way that he breaks down the little things that happen on an everyday basis, I think were really poignant and beautiful. And when you start reaching the last third of the story, and it is vocalized in the story as well, but the more you read, the more you realize that the core lesson of this book, or the core feeling that Kazu has a lot of the time, is that when he was homeless, he was invisible to people around the station, in the park adjacent to it, and people really wouldn't pay attention to him or any of the other homeless people that were in the area. People would help them and people would give them food, and by people I mean organizations, non-profits. Otherwise, the people who would go to and fro really wouldn't bat an eye at them. And now that he is a ghost and he is dead, he experiences the same thing. So just as homeless people in the station and his own experience, he is no more, no less visible than the homeless people who still live there. And so it is almost this repetitive cycle that he can't really escape even in death. And what I really liked about this book is that throughout all of his contemplations, we still get these very human moments that everybody experiences. Him catching snippets of other people's conversations and their struggles in life, and almost just overhearing and snooping at what people are saying, which definitely gives you that city feeling of being at a metro station, being at a subway station, whatever you guys call it, being at a train station, and being able to kind of overhear certain things that are happening around you. And so that part of it I also really enjoyed. So yes, overall, I really enjoyed this. I'm giving this a 4-star. And let me read you a few quotes from the book as well. I have them on my iPad, because although the prose of the book, I don't think it's anything special. I think it's very standard. I think that it has some really beautiful moments quote-wise that I was just oohing and ahhing at because they were so good. I was relieved that he left, of course, but at the same time, I thought what a thing of sin poverty was. That there could be nothing more sinful than forcing a small child to lie. The wages of that sin were poverty, a wage that one could not endure, leading one to sin again, and as long as one could not pull oneself out of poverty, the cycle would repeat until death. And that's another thing about this book, is that it really comments on society and poverty and the inequality economically that a lot of people experience. And I personally wonder also if the parallels and all of these coincidences between Kazu and the imperial family were also meant to reinforce that idea of how the imperial family is obviously very wealthy. So when something arises that needs the help of money in order to appease the situation, in order to help, in order to, I mean, do whatever they need to do with money, the imperial family can get that done. Whereas Kazu, being lower class, he doesn't really get that privilege. And so a lot of the time when he's needed money in order to fix a situation or in order to help a situation, he couldn't really do it because he wasn't in a position to do it. So I think that parallel also, especially with the storyline with the sons, I think reinforced that a lot. Also, this about fatherhood, about parenthood. I was a father looking down at his son for the first time, and yet I felt like a baby looking up at his mother's face. Suddenly, I wanted to cry. And I think Kazu is the perfect example of a character reading like a normal person, because he really wasn't ready to be a father. And I mean, who is, right? Parenthood doesn't come with a manual, life doesn't come with a manual. And so when we experience things for the first time, and something so serious and something so life-changing as having your own kid, you really don't know what to do. And you can read as many self-help maternity books as you want, but at the end of the day, you're just figuring things out as you go. And so having even that small moment where he looks at his child and he's like, what am I feeling? What do I do now? Like, I feel like a child again because I feel so almost impotent. I don't know how to navigate this new part of my life, and it felt very human to me. And this too, I thought that once I was dead, I would be reunited with the dead, that I would see close up those who were far away, touch them, and feel them at all times. I thought something would be resolved by death. I believed that at the final moments, the meaning of life and death would appear to me clearly like a fog lifting. But then I realized that I was back in the park. I was not going anywhere. I had not understood anything. I was still stunned by the same numberless doubts, only I was now outside life looking in, as someone who has lost the capacity to exist, now ceaselessly thinking, ceaselessly feeling. And it seems like now in death is really the only time, or the first time at least, that he is able to sit with his feelings and really analyze his life and really think through his life decisions and his life path and where that took him. And I think that's where a lot of the regret comes in. And this, to be homeless is to be ignored when people walk past while still being in full view of everyone. That one really made me really, really sad. So yes, it was a really sad little book, a really introspective little book, and I loved every second of it. Now I need to go back to sprinting because the timer went off and I'm still talking as I do. This has been a really long update. I didn't know I had that much to say about this book, but apparently I do. However, now it's time for If We Were Villains, so I'm going to run away to the sprints and come back when I have an update for this. Hi friends, hello. So, good night, hi. It is currently 11:25 p.m. I just did, there goes Vin, I just did my skincare routine and I want to update you one last time today before I lay in bed, read, go sleep, and then wake up tomorrow morning and update you again. So I've started If We Were Villains. I'm currently 15% through, and so far I'm not wowed. I think it'll start getting better later on because I'm only like 52 pages in. However, we essentially follow this group of friends while they're in college. They're all in this conservatory of fine arts. They're all studying theater, and particularly the school that they attend, the conservatory, is very Shakespeare centric. It is the only thing they do. It is the only thing they study, which, all things considered, it sounds very limiting as far as fine arts, performing arts go. However, out of this entire group of friends, we follow Oliver, who is in jail at the start of the book, and he has been persuaded by a detective lawyer. I really don't know exactly what he is, but law enforcement of some kind. He was persuaded by this man to finally tell him the truth of what happened many a year ago that ended up with him in jail. And so he starts telling the story of their fourth and final year in this conservatory as they are putting up a production of Caesar, obviously Shakespeare, and they also get this very mysterious letter, which is a secret play apparently that also happens every year. The secret play, I don't know if every year it's Macbeth or if it varies per year, but this year it's Macbeth. And if this is not foreshadowing for the tragedy that will ensue later on, I don't know what will. There's also been a lot of mentions and parallels of what is more painful than a person close to you committing murder, specifically your murder. And so we already know where it's heading. It's just a matter of who will perish and under whose hand, and why did Oliver take the blame, because so far it hasn't seemed like anybody else ended up in jail but him. And so obviously the bulk of the book so far has been a lot of Shakespearean references. It's been a lot of character study. It's been a lot of breaking down plots and meanings and mirroring and foreshadowing and just everything within a Shakespearean play. Obviously their classes revolve around this, and the production that they're putting up revolves around this. Their conversations seem to be plagued by the school, what they do, what they're studying, and even though it's very one-dimensional in that sense and very pretentious, it is somewhat enjoyable. However, it's not making for an exciting read so far, but I can tell what the author is dropping as the book moves forward so that we can get to that point of tension, that point of conflict, that point of murder, essentially, and for it to make sense. So I'm seeing the steps. Again, it's very slow in the way that Dark Academia tends to be slow, but I've still read Dark Academia a bit more exciting than this. Oliver obviously has his own voice, and so it's very distinctive. He narrates the story, so it's impossible for him to not, you know, be very distinguished amongst the entire cast. However, everybody else sounds exactly the same. I literally cannot differentiate who's talking when there isn't a name following the sentence. And so in that that regard, I'm a little bit underwhelmed because everybody just seems to be once more one-dimensional. Everybody seems to be living for Shakespeare and reciting Shakespearean lines, but that's all that they're really giving as side characters. Not even really as side characters, but as protagonists too, because they are all on the page at the same time most of the time. So it's very disappointing that they all sound the same so far. The only character that remotely sounds like his own person is Richard, and that is because so far he seems a little bit antagonistic, just a tiny little bit. I think that there could be a nice play in words there, that he's always playing the hero in the plays, but what if he is the somewhat antagonist villain in real life? And so that's it so far. Nothing much has really happened besides them getting the mysterious letter that invites them to be a part of Macbeth. And it seems like in this play, in Macbeth, it's the first time that the character archetypes, the typecasting that they've all gotten in the past breaks. So it's very easy for them to predict who's going to play who in the plays, just because there seems to be a certain pattern with typecasting. For those of you who are not in theater, it essentially means putting a person in a very specific mold. So all of the character archetypes, you always play the hero, you always play the villain, you always play the blonde, you always play the mean girl, you always play sidekick, you always play this, you always play something very, very specific. And a lot of the time people fall into the typecasting a lot, especially when they're very good at it. It just seems like they fall on the same roles over and over again. And so for this cast of characters, it seems that their typecast is very strong. And it seems, again, that now that they've gotten this invitation for Macbeth, this very secret play that nobody can know about, which I will guess most of the conflict will happen there maybe, it seems that for the first time, their typecasts have been broken. The curse of the typecast has been broken. So we'll see where that goes. I'm intrigued, but not that intrigued. So we'll see what happens. I'm gonna go lay down and read. Vin is eating, I can hear her. Hello, my beautiful humans. How are we doing? So today is Sunday. Hi. It's the last day of the readathon and it is currently 11:48 a.m. So I need to update you because I have officially, after struggling and after my Patreon said, Mel, this is a self-care readathon, don't do that to yourself. And they're right. I have officially DNF'd the third book of the readathon, If We Were Villains. I was really hopeful for this. I was really hoping to love this. You guys know I'm a thespian. I'm a theater kid. I love all of it. And this was honestly the most disappointing experience I've ever experienced, especially in the realms of theater. It just made me really, really excited to experience this for myself and get all of those dark academic vibes while also getting a deeper look into the theater and the ins and outs and all of the Shakespearean elements to this. And this book is boring, and I take full offense to that. And not only that, but it seems lazy in my opinion as far as the execution goes for this, because instead of spending actual time developing these characters, each of their voices, each of their personalities, this book spends more time actually detailing Shakespeare plays and actually including excerpts on excerpts on excerpts on words on words on dialogue on more dialogue of Shakespeare's plays. And so of what I've read, it spends more time actually detailing out those things than actually fleshing out the actual story and the characters. And I understand what it's trying to do with creating these parallels and these mirrors and all of these themes between obviously Shakespearean characters and Emil Rio's characters. However, it is something that she continuously fails at in this book because the originality in this is very much lacking, and it pains me to say that. And so while this book has some parts that, you know, were intriguing, they were fascinating, the bulk of this is incredibly boring. These characters, they are insufferable and they lack individuality in this book. It's like they're all the fucking same. They all talk the same way, they all behave the same way, they all sound the same. And so how am I supposed to know who's who? And so listen, I can vibe with some pretentiousness sometimes, especially in the realms of dark academia, but the pretentiousness in this book was a bit too high for what it was doing, okay? It's like, you know, it's kind of that girl who thinks she's all that, but in reality, she's not all that, like she's not it at all. That's kind of what this book felt like. Also, this book has alternating timelines, and by that I mean that every act starts out with Oliver talking talking to the detective that was a part of the investigation when it started and has just given up his badge because his wife has demanded to spend time with him. His name is Colborne, and now that he is retired, he is again asking Oliver for all of the truth, for all of the information, so that he can finally rest easy and it'll all be off record. And that is really the only semblance of the present that we're getting. And I'm sure at some point it'll converge, obviously, as the story keeps going forward, but I literally have zero patience in getting there, like at all. And I feel if this book would have actually done alternating timelines between the chapters, it would have made it more interesting to see Oliver's life now and what exactly got him to that point versus just getting a small snippet of it and the bulk of the book being spent in the past, which works, mind you. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but if it would have been written more interestingly, I would be vibing with it more, and that is sadly not the case. And you know what? The bottom line for me is Richard should have offed them all. Like, the majority of it is Shakespeare's dialogue. If I wanted to read fucking Shakespeare, I'd go pick up a Shakespeare play, not an Emil Rio book, and that's my bottom line. That's where I'm at. If I would have to rate this book at 50%, I'd give it 1 star. It can't get any worse than that. However, I'm not gonna rate it because I didn't read more than 50%, but just know where I stand. And so now, in the hopes of going back to the 5-star train, the 5-star high, I'm going to start Spinning Silver and hope that this does something for me and that it's actually good. I'm gonna go back to sprints. I'm gonna keep on reading. Welcome to the last update of the vlog. So today was, I read, but was it the most productive of reading days? No. DNF'd a book, and after that, I just felt the sluggishness. So I did start Spinning Silver. However, I only got 30 pages in. So really not a lot of progress. However, I can tell you what this book is about because I've got the premise. We follow Miriam, who is the daughter of a moneylender. And at the start point of this book, her father is basically unable to collect the debt of everybody who owes him money, and that is plenty of people. Essentially, the whole town owes him something. And so Miriam takes it upon herself to take over this role of moneylender and make this her career, her job, and make sure that her family is sustained, that their money is returned to them, and really, like the title says, she spins silver. She turns silver into gold. She turns nothing into gold, a dead into gold, and it is pretty astounding, actually. She is super assertive from what I get to observe so far, and she is also very cold on the outside. I feel like her life experiences have hardened her, and I feel also being a moneylender, you do kind of have to be stoic for people to take you seriously, but also for people to not scam you out of money. And so her exterior seems very, very stoic, very cold, which makes me wonder if she has a love interest in the story, how she will show her true self and how she will allow herself to be vulnerable. I'm very interested to see that part of it. But we not only get Miriam as the main character of the story, but we also get another POV, which is Wanda. And Wanda is another person who lives in the same village. Wanda grew up in a very nasty environment. Her father is abusive. Her mother died a few years ago, and her brothers are constantly growing, and his father is certainly not making enough money, nor is he borrowing enough money in order to sustain the household. And so it's really up to her and her siblings to sustain this, to bring the food to the table, to make sure to ration the food so that it lasts more than the current season that they're on, because their father really doesn't do any of those things. And so at the start of the book, and it's not really a spoiler because it happens within the first 30 pages, when Miriam takes over her father's job, she essentially goes to Wanda's household to collect the debt. And obviously Wanda's father does not have the money, and he does not want to give anything up, actually. But they do strike an agreement, and that is that Wanda will go over to Miriam's house and she will work there every single day, and that way she will pay off her debt in about 4 years, because she will get
half a penny every day. And that is really what I've read so far. That's really what we've gotten. It's a lot of exposition. It's a lot of establishing the world and the story. We do get this introduction to the Starrick. I will assume it's pronounced. And we don't really know what they are yet. We just know that they have a road that leads directly to their side of the realm. They seem to be above the people in this village. They seem to be ruling over them, or maybe there's some sort of royalty, but they do seem to be very far away from the people in this village, and the people in this village are very, very scared of them. And in fact, anything that revolves around the Starrick, they do not want to come across because they know the consequences that will have. And so that's what I've read. It's really interesting so far. It's really slow, but I am listening to the Skyrim exploration suit as I read this, and it's the vibe. I feel like the Skyrim exploration suit really works perfectly for wintry stories. And so yes, that is it for today, friends. That is the 48-hour readathon vlog. I hope that you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, don't forget to give it a massive thumbs up down below. And if you reached the end of the video, let's leave some coin emojis down below for spinning silver, and comment down below what you've read recently. What are you currently reading? Anything new? Anything interesting? Have you read any of the books that I mentioned in this video? What are your takes on them? I love to discuss books with you guys in the comment section. I think it's always a great conversation to have. Don't forget to subscribe down below if you haven't done so already. I am constantly uploading videos that I am sure you do not want to miss. And if you want to support the channel further, I do have a Patreon. It is always linked down below in case you're craving the exclusive content, the live shows, the book club, a Discord server, watching the videos ad-free. Hello, it's a great perk to have. So if you're craving any of those things, it is always linked down below alongside all of my social medias. And yes, I love you guys so much, and I shall see you on the next one. Bye guys!